The space heater made a loud pop and died. Again. I kicked it once, then shoved my gloves deeper into my pockets and kept welding. Sparks flew, and the rig shocked the hell out of me just like it always did. But the bracket held. That was it. That was the moment I knew it worked. My name's Eric. I'm 41 years old, based out of Fort Collins, Colorado. 15 years ago, I joined a no-name construction design firm with 3 guys and a lease over a dry cleaner. No receptionist, no break room. Just folding chairs, a stained coffee pot, and a cracked whiteboard with half-erased formulas no one bothered to wipe down. I came in with one idea, a modular bracket system that could make prefab buildings go up faster, stronger, and cheaper. Nobody else cared about it. They wanted to build houses. I wanted to change how buildings stayed standing. The first prototype was pure junk metal, cobbled together with parts from a scrapyard and that suicidal welder. But it held weight. I ran stress tests by dropping cinder blocks from the roof. Real scientific stuff. It passed every single time. That scrap bracket became my first engineering patent. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. After that, I couldn't stop. Anchoring systems, seismic-resistant joints, stackable frames that click together like Lego. It just kept coming. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with a sketch already forming in my head. We didn't have resources, so I made do. PVC mock-ups, duct tape simulations, whatever I could grab on short notice. By the 5th year, I'd racked up 16 patents, all under the company's name, sure, but I was listed as the inventor. That's what mattered to me back then. Not titles, not money, just building. They gave me a title anyway. Lead Systems Engineer. Made it sound official. But they knew better than to micromanage. I hated meetings. Didn't show up to half of them. I kept my head down in the back office or out in the shop, turning ideas into blueprints and then into steel. The money started rolling in. Not for me, of course, for them. But I didn't care. Every time I saw one of my systems holding up a real building, something that actually made a difference, I felt like I won. I didn't know it yet, but those designs would be the foundation for everything, and not just buildings. One of the partners walked in holding a spreadsheet once and said, "You just made us $1 million this quarter." I barely looked up. "Cool, I need new welding masks. Mine's cracked." He laughed. I didn't. I got the masks, and I kept building. By year 6, my brackets were holding up clinics in flood zones, schools out in the Dakotas, emergency shelters after hurricanes. Every structure that needed to go up quick and stay standing, people were using my systems, not just locally. We started seeing inquiries from South America, Southeast Asia, even a mining project in northern Canada. I didn't go to the conferences, didn't fly out to ribbon cuttings. I wasn't interested in shaking hands with mayors or taking glossy press photos. I stayed in my workshop, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week sometimes, just solving problems, making better joints, faster frames, lighter panels. The firm grew without me needing to watch it. Licensing requests stacked up. Universities, hospitals, state contracts. By year 10, we had offices in Salt Lake City and Austin, and they built me a private workshop back in Fort Collins. Full access. No swipe badge needed. Just me and whoever I approved. They offered me stock options. Twice. I passed both times. I didn't want to play the game. I didn't want to sit in meetings while someone tried to explain market synergies to me with a stupid pie chart. The day I finalized the 48-hour rebuild system, that was the shift. We tested it in the desert. Full-size modular building taken apart and rebuilt in 39 hours. Engineers called it impossible. Fire inspectors signed off on it in 2 days. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of me. But I kept it quiet. Didn't want a team, didn't want press. I consulted on every major proposal without stepping out of my chair. I didn't care about attention, I just cared about control. One morning, I walked in and found a brochure mock-up sitting on my desk. New logo, bright colors, modern font. Some marketing guy had photoshopped a bunch of smiling interns standing next to one of my units like it was a juice bar. I tossed it straight into the trash. "Hey," my tech Greg said, leaning in. "You see the new site?" "What site?" He spun his laptop around. There it was, a shiny new website. Our old mission statement was gone, replaced with words like visionary, disruption, modular living evolution. It read like a Silicon Valley pitch deck. "Who approved this?" I asked. Greg shrugged. "Marketing, I guess." I didn't say anything. I just closed the laptop and got back to work. A week later, I sent in a budget request for a new CNC plasma cutter, the kind that could shave days off fabrication. It got denied. First time in a decade. I emailed finance. No reply. I called. Got transferred 3 times before someone told me all requests had to go through budgetary oversight. That was new and suspicious. That same week, HR sent out an email blast about streamlined employee development protocols. I ignored it. Then they asked me to recertify my job description. Another form, another layer. I walked over to my workshop whiteboard and saw a sticky note stuck on the corner. In Greg's handwriting, weird energy upstairs lately. He wasn't wrong. I went to check our shared drive, the one that used to be mine alone, and saw that all my prototype folders had new permission settings. Restricted. Shared with someone named D. Wheeler. I didn't know who the hell that was. So I asked. Some new guy, Greg said. Executive level. Started last week. Nobody had mentioned a new hire to me. No intro, no email. Just a name buried in the system, with access to all my files. I stared at the screen for a while, hands clenched. Want me to lock the folder? Greg asked quietly. I shook my head. Number, let it be. That was the first time in years I left the workshop early. Didn't even finish welding the last panel. I just peeled off my gloves and walked out, no explanation. Something had shifted, and I wasn't about to pretend I didn't feel it. The next Monday, he rolled up in a silver Porsche Panamera, sunglasses on indoors. Fake smile already locked and loaded. Tan suit, polished loafers, hair too perfect to trust. Name tag read, Dennis Wheeler. Title, Director of Innovation Partnerships. Whatever the hell that meant. He shook hands like he was sealing a deal with God. Eric, heard a lot about you. Can't wait to see what you're cooking in the lab. It's a workshop, I said, not shaking his hand. Didn't faze him. He just grinned wider like he'd just been challenged to a TED Talk. He made a big show of touring the place, touching things he didn't understand, scribbling in a little leather notebook. He stopped in front of a prototype curing unit and said, "This is cool, but can we make it more disruptive?" Greg choked back a laugh behind him. I didn't bother responding. Dennis took the silence as permission to keep going. Your stuff has major potential, but to scale, we need to reframe it. Make it sexy. Think verticals. Think venture partnerships. Think less, I muttered, turning back to my welder. He didn't get the hint. Spent the next hour in the shop asking questions that made no sense. Then he vanished. I figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. Within 2 weeks, I got pulled from the next budget meeting. No invite. Just gone from the calendar. I emailed to ask what happened. No answer. Next day, my request for new tensile rigs came back marked denied. No explanation. Just a red stamp and a new approval chain that now included, guess who? Dennis Wheeler. Then I walked into the shop and found both Greg and Sarah packing up their desks. What's going on? I asked. Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. Greg looked pissed. They reassigned us. Dennis's task force. Something about rapid build vertical deployment. I stared at them. You're kidding. Nope, Greg said. We tried to push back. They said it's not optional. That afternoon, I started documenting. Every email, every meeting cancellation, every budget denial. I timestamped everything, printed backups, stored them on encrypted drives. If they were coming for me, they were going to choke on their own paper trail. 2 days later, Dennis sent out a company-wide email. Excited to unveil our latest modular solution at next week's Industry Summit, I clicked the link, my design. My framework, my bracket layout, all of it. Rebranded with some idiotic name, Flex Frame X, and a slick logo that looked like it belonged on an energy drink can. His name was on every slide. Mine wasn't mentioned once. I didn't reply, didn't even blink. A week after that, the presentation went live. He stood up in front of a packed hall of clients, engineers, press, and sold them my system like he came up with it in a dream. Called it a revolution in emergency structural deployment. Smiled like a damn politician. I sat in the back row, alone, arms crossed, watching. When the Q&A came, someone asked, "How did you handle the structural joining under high torsion loads?" Dennis blinked, paused. "Well, we engineered it to handle dynamic pressures. No numbers, no specs. Just a buzzword soup. I could have stood up right then and torn the whole show down. But I didn't. Not yet. Let them keep thinking I was the quiet one. The builder, the guy who didn't care. That night, I copied the video, saved it to the archive. Greg texted me one sentence. "You saw it. I replied. Yep, documented. No anger, no panic, just strategy. After the summit, it all moved fast, faster than I expected. Client emails stopped coming. I'd been CC'd on every major project thread for years. Suddenly, nothing. I tested it, sent a few updates to project managers I knew personally. Radio silence. A week later, I opened the company site. My name was gone. Not just from the homepage, completely erased from the Our Team section, where it used to say Lead Systems Engineer. Now it said Special Projects Consultant. No announcement, no conversation. Just a quiet demotion in plain sight. I didn't say a word. Let them think I was out of gas. The workshop got quieter. My new equipment requests kept disappearing into a black hole. I tracked each one. Dennis had inserted himself as final reviewer on all procurement. Every damn request had his signature stamped denied. I kept printing logs, building the archive. Sarah stopped by one night after hours, shoulders hunched, looking guilty as hell. She dropped a note on my desk, didn't say a thing, and left. I unfolded it. Just 5 words. They're scared of you. I taped it to the wall next to my desk, dead center. A few days later, Greg passed me in the hallway. No eye contact, just a muttered, sorry, man. I didn't need to ask what for. I found out about my own system's launch from a damn LinkedIn post. A new prefab unit I'd prototyped over 6 months ago. Improved seismic joints, integrated fire resistance panels. Launched without me. No email, no invite. The post had a smiling picture of Dennis standing on a project site in a branded vest, holding one of my panels like he invented it. I stared at it, saved the photo, logged the date. Then I got the invite. An internal calendar hold for board strategy presentation. Dennis listed as host. I wasn't on the attendee list. I showed up anyway. Walked into the back of the room, while Dennis clicked through his slides like a man on fire. This next module was developed by my team, he said, pointing to another design I'd written in Sharpie on a whiteboard 8 months ago. It represents a breakthrough in scalable disaster relief infrastructure. I leaned against the wall. No one turned to look at me. He kept going, talking like he'd sweated over that design, like he'd done anything but slap a logo on top. When it ended, the board applauded. One guy even said, "Brilliant work, Dennis." I slipped out before they noticed me. Next morning, I logged into the internal org chart to check something. There it was again. Special Projects Consultant. No email, no HR meeting, no process. I printed that too. Didn't fight it, didn't complain. Let them all think I was fading out, some over-the-hill engineer coasting toward early retirement. That's how they wanted to see me. Easy to ignore, safe to forget. Dennis mistook my silence for weakness. That's when he made his move. 2 weeks later, I got a calendar invite with no details. Quarterly executive review. Location, Boardroom C. He wanted an audience, so I gave him one. I put on the same boots I wore the first time I welded a bracket in that busted shop above the dry cleaner. Walked into the boardroom. Didn't shake hands, didn't sit. Dennis smiled like a man about to bury someone. Dennis stood at the head of the table like he owned the oxygen in the room. Behind him, a large man wheeled in a portable shredder. That was new. I looked around. 10 board members, no HR, no legal counsel. Just Dennis, smiling like he'd rehearsed this in the mirror all week. "Thank you all for joining," he said, flipping a folder open. "Today's agenda includes a bold step forward for the company's creative direction." He turned and held up a piece of paper between his fingers, a copy of my original employment contract. "We're here to formally sunset some legacy contributions that, while foundational, no longer reflect the forward-facing vision of this firm." Then he dropped the contract into the shredder. Right there, in front of everyone. He didn't even break eye contact with me, like he expected me to lunge across the table or start yelling. I didn't move. "This is not a termination in the traditional sense," Dennis continued. "It's a necessary restructuring. We're shifting toward fresh minds, future-focused innovation." "You're firing me," I said. He gave a shrug that tried to look corporate. "Let's call it repurposing institutional resources." One of the board members cleared his throat. "Is this properly documented?" Dennis nodded. "It's already reflected on internal systems. Titles updated, access revoked, physical keys collected, the paperwork symbolic." The shredder groaned as the last of the page vanished. He thought that was the end. I watched him closely, not smiling, not blinking. Just sitting in my chair, hands folded. You done? I asked. For now, he said, smug as hell. Best to wrap this cleanly. No loose ends. I stood up. Great. Then I'll be out of your building in 10. Dennis leaned back, like he'd just bagged a trophy. The room went quiet. I walked out without looking back. Straight to my car. No packed boxes, no farewell tour. Just my keys and a folder in the glove compartment I'd been keeping for over a decade. That shredded contract? It didn't mean shit. The real one was rewritten in year 3. Quietly, with my own lawyer. A guy named Marty who worked out of a strip mall law office and never wore a tie. I paid him out of pocket. Had it notarized, scanned, printed twice, sealed, and stored in 3 separate locations. One clause, that's all it took. Clause 12. C. If terminated without cause or due process, full reversion of intellectual property rights to the named inventor. All of it. Every bracket, every joint, every modular system. Every patent that made them rich. If they breached, they lost the bones. They'd built a skyscraper on top of my blueprints, and they just knocked out the foundation. By the time I pulled into my garage, I already had the scanned contract open, comparing it line by line to what they'd shredded. They hadn't even bothered to verify. Dennis had no idea it wasn't the original. That night, I called Marty. Hey, I said, they did it. Shredded the wrong one? Like amateurs? He chuckled once. Send me the scan again, just to be safe. Already did. Vault's open. I'll prep the notice. Send it directly to internal legal, I said. Don't CC Dennis yet. Let it sit. Copy that. I sat there for a while after the call ended, lights off, contract pulled up on my screen, watching the clause highlight like it was glowing. 12 years of my life. They thought they owned it. They never read the fine print. Marty called back around 10 p.m. Notice is drafted, he said, calm as ever. I'll file it to internal counsel first thing, direct to their legal inbox, not general ops. Do it, I said. No Dennis. Right, let it simmer. We opened the vault, digital copies, backups, notarized timestamps, every single patent, every diagram. Not just the public versions, my originals, the ones with margin notes, physical stamps, handwritten calculations, all mine, all logged under the reversion clause. He sent the breach notice at 7:03 a.m. sharp. Subject line, formal IP reversion notification, contract breach 12. C, silence. Then, at 3:16 p.m., internal legal replied, we acknowledge receipt. Can you clarify the nature of the breach? Marty didn't even blink. He fired back a single-page attachment. My amended contract, page 7 highlighted in yellow. Clause 12C, in the event of termination without proper due process, full and immediate reversion of all associated intellectual property to the listed inventor shall be enacted without exception. No wiggle room, no fancy footnotes. Just a hammer. We waited. At 5:42 p.m., their tone shifted. They looped in their outside counsel, some massive Manhattan firm with a name that sounded like a yacht insurance brokerage, the kind of lawyers who bill 4 figures an hour and only get called when someone's bleeding money. That was when it got real. They asked for a call. Marty refused. Said everything needed to be in writing. He was good like that. Always kept the battlefield tilted in our direction. They sent over a request for clarification so bloated with legal padding it could have stopped a car crash. Marty didn't even read half of it. He forwarded me a one-liner. They're fishing, I called him. You think they're stalling? They're panicking, and yeah, they'll stall. But it doesn't matter. They don't own the bones anymore. He was right. It hit me around midnight. That building they just launched in Nevada, powered by a panel system they no longer legally had the right to use. That hospital rebuild in Louisiana? My seismic anchors were in every structural beam. Their licensing deals, the government contracts, they were all wired to patents that were no longer theirs. I didn't revoke anything yet. I let them cook. Let Dennis walk around shaking hands, doing victory laps, looking like the golden boy while their whole operation was quietly rotting from the foundation up. 2 days passed. Marty kept pressing in writing, acknowledge reversion, or we file for injunction. They sent back a load of nothing. We dispute the interpretation of Clause 12C. That's corporate speak for. We're screwed and don't know how to fix it yet. Meanwhile, I called a few old contacts, not to warn them, just to listen. One contractor in Seattle told me, we were supposed to get an update package for the new prefab system. Still hasn't arrived. I asked why. He said, tech says it's held up on a permissions issue. Backend won't verify the license key. I didn't say anything, just nodded and hung up. That was my backend. My key, my security layer buried in the update code. They couldn't use the product without me. The next day, 2 more build sites reported delays due to integration issues. No one knew yet, but the fuse was burning. Marty sent one last message, short and clean. Effective today, all use of reversion-eligible IP constitutes infringement. That was the final nail. They didn't respond, not directly. But I could see the cracks forming. Their lawyers stopped arguing. Their marketing team went quiet. And Dennis? And not a peep. Not yet. The next email from their legal team was full of fluff. Passive voice, weak verbs, watered-down panic disguised as confidence. We respectfully dispute your interpretation of Clause 12C. Marty replied with one line, then dispute it in court. They didn't. Instead, they tried to act like nothing was wrong. But the systems told a different story. First site to go down was in West Texas. Wind farm control center built with my modular units, designed for snap-together deployment and remote firmware updates. But without the back-end handshake, the new update bricked half the system. Their techs flagged it as internal licensing fault. Second shutdown hit a week later. Rural housing site outside Tulsa. Same prefab tech, same update failure, same cause. No one could override it, because I never gave them access to the failsafe layer buried in the firmware. Then came the email from overseas. Their biggest international partner, massive operation in Indonesia, reached out to me directly. Subject line, urgent, structural IP license, validation required. They needed my certification to keep going. Full stop. No license, no permit. I didn't respond, not right away. Let them squirm. Meanwhile, Dennis did a live stream town hall from the Austin office. Tried to smile through it, saying things like, "We're in an exciting transition phase, and change is never easy, but we're agile." But the engineers knew. You could see it in their faces, fear behind the forced nodding. They weren't stupid. Greg messaged me after the stream. "He's sweating. People are talking. Good." I checked the site metrics that night. Traffic down 30%. Inquiries stalled. Investor chatter on LinkedIn had turned sour. One post said, "Hearing unconfirmed reports of IP licensing issues at company name. Anyone know more?" I didn't comment, but others did. Engineers, subcontractors, former clients. The silence from leadership was getting louder. Then the vultures came. First was a mid-sized construction firm out of Denver. CEO sent me a clean 2-page letter of interest. "Would you consider licensing your systems independently? We're willing to match current royalties, plus a bonus structure." I said I'd think about it. Next day, another offer. This one from a private development firm in Chicago. Bigger numbers, serious money. Then came a call from a government liaison I hadn't spoken to in 6 years. "Eric, I hear you might be renegotiating your licensing structure. Just so you know, we're interested." The company I'd built was bleeding out through its own arrogance, and suddenly everyone wanted a piece of the corpse. I still hadn't said a word publicly. And Dennis? He'd vanished from social feeds. No more quotes, no more PR sound bites. Just his grinning headshot still hanging on the executive page like a ghost that hadn't realized he was dead. Board members started reaching out too, indirectly. Marty forwarded one message from a concerned stakeholder, asking if we'd be open to a resolution. They weren't asking for a fight anymore. They were asking for a lifeline. And I hadn't even touched them yet. I poured a drink, opened the contract file again, read that clause one more time, nice and slow. Then I let the silence keep working. Marty and I met at the same diner every morning. Back booth near the window, chipped laminate table, waitress who stopped asking if we wanted menus. She just brought coffee, hash browns, and left us alone. Between the eggs and salt packets sat a growing stack of term sheets, licensing deals, consulting offers, full buyouts. Some of them were in the 8-figure range. One from a modular defense contractor in Virginia had handwritten notes in the margins. "We're prepared to move fast. Full IP acquisition plus founder equity option." Marty flipped through them like a man browsing clearance bins. Calm, clinical. "They know the tech's good," he said, pushing a page toward me. "They just want to know if you're really done with the company." "I'm done," I said, not even looking up. "I want what's mine, and I want it loud." Meanwhile, Dennis was still missing. No quotes, no press. The company's social channels posted generic content, building the future, one unit at a time. With no mention of the IP situation, But the tone from their legal side, totally different. No more arrogance, just vague politeness and legal puff. Hope we can align on mutual interests. Looking forward to a resolution that benefits all parties. Appreciate your willingness to engage. I didn't reply. Marty handled it all. Cold, precise. They're trying to ease you back to the table before they bleed out, he said. I took a bite of toast. Let them keep bleeding. We had time. They didn't. They were stalling builds, retooling systems, recalculating everything. Every hour they didn't have rights to my designs cost them clients, credibility, cash. That Wednesday, I got a call, unknown number. I let it ring twice, then picked up. This is Eric. Pause. Then a voice I didn't recognize. Female. Tense. Mr. Anders, the board would like to schedule a meeting with you. In person. No lawyers? Number they'd prefer a direct conversation. Location? Your old boardroom, Fort Collins. When? Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Click. I hung up and looked at Marty. They're calling the meeting. He didn't blink. Of course they are. They're out of leverage. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a fresh folder. Then we go in with terms. Next morning, same booth, but the hash browns stayed untouched. We laid out the deal. Licensing only. No equity, no apologies needed. Just a check and a signature. $7 million upfront. Royalties on all current builds using my systems. Retroactive penalties waived. Take it or leave it, Marty said. I nodded. I'll deliver it myself. He didn't ask to come. He knew this part was mine. I walked into the same boardroom they fired me from. Same table, same glass walls, same fake plants in the corner that had collected more dust than anyone wanted to admit. Dennis was already there. He looked like hell. Hair disheveled, tie crooked, bags under his eyes deep enough to pack a carry-on. He didn't say anything when I stepped in, just stared like he was hoping I'd disappear. I didn't sit. 5 board members in person. 3 on the wall screens. 1 empty chair. They hadn't replaced me. Let's keep this short, I said, setting the folder down on the table. 2 options. No one spoke. Option 1, license the tech at my price, $7 million upfront. 10% royalties on every structure using my systems, current or future. All IP rights remain mine. I looked around the table. Blank stares. Someone shifted in their chair. Option 2, I walk. I sell the entire portfolio to any of the firms already throwing me numbers. And I guarantee you lose every contract tied to my name. Dennis opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. Don't, I snapped. You had your scene. You did your shredder play. You don't get another monologue. He shut his mouth. One of the older board members cleared his throat. We'd need time to review terms. I locked eyes with him. You had time, I said. When you watched him tear up a contract you didn't read. Silence. No one argued. No one defended Dennis. Not even him. He just kept looking down like he was trying to crawl out through the carpet. I stood still. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. They whispered. They fidgeted. One of the remote board members muted their mic and leaned over to speak with someone off screen. I didn't move an inch. Tension hung in the air like welding smoke. 47 minutes. That's how long it took. They came back with a signed licensing agreement. Word for word what Marty and I wrote. No red lines, no notes. Same-day wire transfer confirmation. $7 million. Immediate access revoked for Dennis and his team. Public statement, under consideration. But I didn't ask for that. I didn't need a headline. I slid the signed deal into my briefcase, turned, and walked out without saying goodbye. Dennis never looked up. On the way out, I passed the glass display case they'd built in year 8, back when they were still pretending we were building something together. Inside it sat one of my first brackets, the original weld, my handwriting still on the side. I stopped, looked at it. Then I walked past it like it was scrap metal. I got in the truck, shut the door, and checked the account. The zeros were real. Marty texted me a thumbs up and nothing else. That was his style. The deal was closed, paperwork filed, wire cleared, done. I didn't go home. I drove north. 2 hours into the Rockies, past where the roads stopped pretending to be maintained. Gravel, dust, no neighbors for miles. Just me in a cabin I'd bought 6 months back. Under an LLC no one ever traced, just in case. Pulled up to the gate, punched in the code, and drove through. The cabin wasn't big, didn't need to be, just solid. Steel frame, Concrete foundation, solar, rain catch, heat from the fire, not the grid. No reception, no screens, no meetings. Just wind cutting through the trees and the sound of pine needles crackling under the tires. I dropped my bag inside, kicked off my boots, and walked straight out onto the deck. Poured 2 fingers of bourbon. Sat down barefoot. The lake was calm, sun just starting to dip behind the ridge. Water like glass. No ripples, no engines, no noise. Just quiet. Dennis still had his title, still had a team, a board, a business card with some bloated job description on it. But every blueprint they used, mine. Every module they sold, mine. Every dollar they made from now on started with my signature. That was the part they never understood. They thought they could own the builder without owning the build. I don't need to destroy them. That takes energy. I just need to get paid. And now, I get paid every single time they lift a beam, drop a panel, or bolt 2 joints together. They don't own the frame anymore. I do. Forever.